Vorticism was a short-lived modernist movement in British art and poetry of the early 20th century, partly inspired by Cubism. The movement was announced in 1914 in the first issue of Blast, which contained its manifesto and the movement's rejection of landscape and nudes in favour of a geometric style tending towards abstraction. Ultimately, it was the witnessing of unfolding human disaster in World War I that drained these artists of the Vorticist zeal. Vorticism was based in London but was international in makeup and ambition. Origins. The Vorticism group began with the Rebel Art Centre, which Wyndham Lewis and others established after disagreeing with Omega Workshop's founder Roger Fry, and has roots in the Bloomsbury group Cubism and Futurism. Lewis himself saw Vorticism as an independent alternative to Cubism, Futurism and Expressionism. Though the style grew out of Cubism, it is more closely related to Futurism in its embrace of dynamism, the machine age and all things modern. However, Vorticism diverged from Futurism in the way it tried to capture movement in an image. In a Vorticist painting, modern life is shown as an array of bold lines and harsh colors, drawing the viewer's eye into the center of the canvas. The name Vorticism was given to the movement by Ezra Pound in 1913, although Lewis, usually seen as the central figure in the movement, had been producing paintings in the same style for a year or so previously. Participants. The 11 signatories of the Vorticist manifesto were Richard Aldington, Malcolm Arbuthnot, Lawrence Atkinson, Jessica Dismore, Henry Gaudier-Brazeska, Cuthbert Hamilton, Wyndham Lewis, Ezra Pound, William Roberts, Helen Saunders, Edward Wadsworth. Other contributors to the development of the movement were David Bomberg, Alvin Langdon Coburn, Jacob Epstein, Frederick Etchells, Christopher Nevinson and Dorothy Shakespeare. Blast. The Vorticists published 2 issues of the literary magazine Blast, edited by Lewis, in June 1914 and July 1915. It contained work by Ezra Pound and T.S. Eliot as well as by the Vorticists themselves. Its typographical adventurousness was cited by L. Lissitzky as one of the major forerunners of the revolution in graphic design in the 1920s and 1930s. Demise and legacy. Experimental paintings and sculpture using angular simplification and abstraction by Lewis, Wadsworth, Shakespeare and others were shown at the Rebel Art Centre in 1914, before the formation of the Vorticist group. This work was contemporary with and comparable to abstraction by European artists such as Vasily Kandinsky, František Kupka and the Russian Race Group. The Vorticists held only one exhibition, in 1915, at the Doré Gallery in London. The main section of the exhibition included work by Jessica Dismore, Frederick Etchells, Louis Gaudier-Brazeska, William Roberts, Helen Saunders and Edward Wadsworth. There was a smaller section area titled Those Invited to Show that included several other artists. Jacob Epstein was notably not represented, although did have his drawings reproduced in Blast. After this, the movement broke up, largely due to the onset of World War I and public apathy towards the work. Gaudier-Brazeska was killed in military service, while leading figures such as Epstein distanced themselves stylistically from Lewis. A brief attempt by Lewis to revive the movement in 1920 under the name Group 10 proved unsuccessful. Pound, however, through his correspondence with Lewis, was understood to hold a commitment to the goals of the movement as much as 40 years after its demise. While Lewis is generally seen as the central figure in the movement. It has been suggested that this was more due to his contacts and ability as a self-publicist and polemicist than the quality of his works. A 1956 exhibition at the Tate Gallery was called Wyndham Lewis and Vorticism, highlighting his prominent place in the movement. This angered other members of the group. Bomberg and Roberts both protested strongly the assertion of Lewis, which was printed in the exhibition catalogue. Vorticism, in fact, was what I personally did and said at a certain period. Recent exhibitions: The Vorticists, Rebel Artists in London and New York, 1914–18, Nasher Museum of Art at Duke University, 30th of September 2010 to 2 January 2011. The Vorticists, Rebel Artists in London and New York, 1914–18, Peggy Guggenheim Collection, 29th of January – 15th of May 2011. Vorticists.